1. 2. 2's good enough. I like 2. Interesting times. Get started in a little bit. I promise. Love to be my own social media manager. Don't even know if I have any viewers. Oh my god. Pop out chat. Done. Okay, good enough. What is the due date, Ching? That's an interesting question. Here's my copy. It's falling apart. I'll tell you exactly what it is. Just a little bit. But it's a holy book. That's what it is. It's a book about how to live your life. But I'll talk about all that. The most important thing to remember, though, is how seriously should you take all this? Not very. Not very. A little bit, but not very. Whatever that means to you, you're gonna have to work that out. We'll read the introduction together. Alright, thanks OC Remix for playing me out. So I don't have a ton of people in here yet, but you know what? I'm going crazy at home, and the only thing going on in politics is pandemic, and Joe Biden's a ghost. So I don't know what else to talk about in terms of that. I can't do that all day. I'll get back to that. However, one thing I don't talk about a ton on this show, on my podcast, anywhere, is that I'm a holy man. It's true. I've been a dudist priest for about 10 years now. My certificate's around here somewhere. You're just going to take my word on it. I ain't dig it up for you. What is a dudist? Well, who can really say, man? We can't really agree with each other, and we kind of like that. We're not into sort of doctrinaire orthodoxy. But, broadly speaking, a dudist is somebody who's watched The Big Lebowski, has seen how the dude deals with the troubles and travails of his life, how he doesn't deal with them at times, what he wants, and how he fits right in there. How he's really the man for his time and place. Now, I won't say hero, because what makes a hero, right? As the stranger done said. But he's a man and he fits right in there. He's the dude. So, where does the dude live? The dude lives in Hollywood in the 90s. The dude is laid on his rent a lot. The dude lives very humbly. Doesn't live in a big, expensive house. The dude's not looking to get over on anyone. He just wants his rug that was peed on. That's all he wants. Because it really tied that room together. The rat race is outside. The Big Lebowski lives in a big old house. Jackie Treehorn lives in a big old house. Maud lives in a big old house. They're all very rich. They're all after the dude for this, that, and the other reason. But the dude is not interested in that. So that's not the way to happiness in a capitalist world. And maybe you can't change everything, but surely mindless consumption, that is not dude. Anyway, I've done rambled on enough about all that. We're actually just going to read the Dude Day Ching together. As you can see here, this is the introduction by our Archduship, the Dwayne Yutzi, to the extent that we have any sort of hierarchy. I suppose he's in charge. But, you know, like I said, we're not real into that sort of thing. Us dudists, we all tend to do our own thing. And the only real hard and fast rule is that we don't proselytize. That's not allowed. Anyway, as Dwayne puts it, in Dudism's Take It Easy manifesto, we pose questions that fellows wiser than ourselves have contemplated across the sands of time. What makes a religion? Is it being prepared to do the right thing, whatever the cost? Isn't that what makes a religion, or is that along with a pair of testaments? As for definite answers to these timeless queries, well, dude, we just don't know. There are just too many theological ins and outs and ecclesiastical strands to keep in our heads, man. Besides, we smoked a lot of Thai stick back at seminary. And so the truth is, we don't remember a whole lot from our world religions class. One thing we can say for certain, though, most religions have a sacred book, a pile of holy writ, that most adherents believe is the uncompromised first draft direct from God or what have you that really ties the cosmos together, wraps her all up. For instance, Jews have the Torah in addition to 3,000 years of beautiful tradition from Moses to Sandy Koufax. Christians have Gospels that tell the miraculous story of how the Jesus rolled. And the fanatical cult of loaded reactionaries, well, they have the Wall Street Journal. Scriptures, epistles, laws, prophecies, psalms, commandments, stock market analyses. So many learned men and women throughout the ages have disputed what they all mean, and it can be quite stupefying. Even the religions that are some kind of Eastern thing, like Hinduism and Buddhism, have produced endless reams of Vedas and sutras and rituals and chants and whatnot. One exception to the whole divine revelation through written word, however, is Taoism. According to religious scholar Hudson Smith, Taoism has only one basic text, the Tao Te Ching, or in English, the Way and its Power. A slim volume, as Smith says, can be read in half an hour or a lifetime. Legend has it that a Chinaman by the name of Lao Tzu one day said, "Fuck it," loosely translated from the Chinese, hopped on a water buffalo, possibly with rust coloration, and started heading away out west to Tibet. On his way out, someone stopped Lao Tzu and asked if he would write down the tenets of his ethos before leaving town. Being a lazy man, Lao Tzu lodged his water buffalo against an abutment long enough to write the Tao Te Ching's 81 short verses. When finished, he kicked his water buffalo into gear and, tossing his ringer to the man, rode off into the misty horizon of legend and myth. Now, regardless of whether that legend is true or whether Lao Tzu even really existed, the Chinaman is not the issue here, dudes. The issue is that the Tao Te Ching is the perfect expression of Taoism's Wu way of life, or in the parlance of Huston Smith, a life of creative quietude, in which the conscious mind must relax, stop standing in its own light, let go, so that it can flow with the Tao or way of the universe. Buddhism has a lot in common with Taoism, of course, being its philosophical compeer. Taoists, for example, revere the fellow I've introduced by the name of Lao Tzu, literally the old boy. Not something most folks where I come from would self-apply. We have the dude. Lao Tzu rejected uptight Chinese imperial society and rode off to the mountains of Tibet, while the dude rejected uptight American imperial society and became a roadie with Metallica. Lastly, and most importantly, dudes share Taoism's Wu-Wei ethos of just taking it easy, man, and rolling with the cosmic flow. Although dudists have The Big Lebowski, a film you can watch in a couple hours or over a lifetime, Dudism has lacked the equivalent of our own very own Tao Te Ching until now. You have your way of understanding a story, and I have mine. But I think the best way to read these here verses we're about to unfold is to slow down, kick back, fire up a J or sip a Caucasian, and deliberately savor these stanzas as casually as possible. This ain't no spiritual In-N-Out burger, dudes. The Dude Te Ching is just right for pondering as you soak in a tub, surrounded by lit candles, or when you lie on the rug that really ties your room together, digging some Dylan tunes or the clatter of your favorite bowling tournament. After reading the Dude Te Ching, you may say, far out, man, I dig your style, or you may wonder what in God's holy name we're blathering about. Either way, it don't matter to the dudist. We can't be worried about that shit. Life is complicated and all too short, and we're not interested in wasting it on dead doctrinal debates or stale ideological disputes. As one apocryphal dudist verse puts it, the wind passeth over the flower of our days, blowing ashes from a Folgers can back onto our faces, and it is gone. The whole concept abates, but life goes on, man. The dude abides. Nothing changes. We take comfort in that. Oh, hell, I didn't introduce this book enough. Let's go bowling, dudes. Obviously, I didn't read any of that. So, down to brass tacks. I'm not going to... By the way, this is actually kind of... This little note right here is actually, believe it or not, it's something I wanted to say something about. I don't want to fight with anyone. I'll just read what he says. Though the term dude originated as a term to describe a certain type of male and then later refer to men in general, today it is often used to refer to both genders, at least in certain parts of the United States. Dudism doesn't recognize dude as a gender-specific word. We consider both women and men who exhibit dude-like qualities to be dudes, and assert that the word dude can mean many different things depending on the context. Additionally, we occasionally use male pronouns in this book to signify human beings in general rather than resorting to awkward grammatical constructions like he or she or they or blah, blah, blah. Hope you enjoy yourselves. I would just add to that, if you hear dude, it's non-gender specific when it comes out of my mouth. Most people I've found don't use the word dude this way. Dude is a masculine word. Rather than fight with them about that, I'll just accede basically and try to avoid doing it to them, calling them a dude in any way. But just so you know, a dude can be a dudist and a woman, or a man, or something else. Doesn't matter. Being dude is not about your gender or your sex. But if you do hear, talking about dudes, in this case, this is not a dudes rock scenario. Although dudes do rock. All right. The verses. I have my translation here. I would rather read from that. This is it, because theirs is different than mine. I have a different translation. Interesting. I didn't even see that. My book is different. Mine reads, "Dudeness that can be known is not dude. The substance of the world is only a name for what abides." This one begins, "Dudeness that can be blathered about is very undude." Anyway, I guess we'll go with what's on the screen. So, "Dudeness that can be blathered about is very undude. Names we self-apply to things are only handles for what abides. A tumbling of tumbleweeds is all that's really out there. The rug is a fabrication which ties our ruminations together. Our thinking about this must not be uptight, or we will enter a world of pain. Investigating complicated cases allows us to better understand the world. The world is stupefying, but it's far fucking out. Am I wrong? Okay then. The dude digs the style of the stranger, and the stranger the style of the dude. They differ only in their beverages. The Tao helps make sense of the whole darn human comedy. It is a theory of everything. I can get you a toe. There are ways, dude." So the English translation, of course, the Tao that can be discussed is not really the Tao. Things in the world are only temporary reflections of Tao. The flow of Tao is all that really exists. Our language and beliefs and categories are only fabrications, which help us make sense of its flow. In order to understand this, one first has to learn how to react. In order to experience this, one has to first learn how to unlearn. The world is made of and by Tao, and Tao is evidenced by the workings of the world. Tao and the world may seem separate, but that is only because we are hardwired to see it that way. To operate in greater harmony with the world, we must begin to internalize this way in its perspective. So what do I, the Reverend Jeff, have to say about this? I have to say that, number one, I like my translation is better. Because it's a little bit simpler. This is pretty clunky. But what it says to me is that the words that we use to form our thoughts, even these themselves are also human constructs, and in a sense are like artificial, in the sense that like they originate from us and not from nature at large, even though we too are part of nature, and everything really is one. But these are just handles that we put on things to grab them, move them this way and that way, help them make sense of the world. But the more you cling to those, the more uptight your thinking will become. The more uptight your thinking will become, the more you will enter a world of pain. Now, I, for one, think that it's a pretty good idea to have some very broad but very strongly held beliefs in terms of like humanism, right? And I would even say a little love of democracy, small d, whatever that would look like in the world. I think socialism, that's a story for another podcast. But these words that we use to describe what I'm talking about, that we talk about, these are just handles, and they're not always the same shape in everyone's head. And when you harden them, you limit yourself. It does make some sense to take a step back now and then and look at things from a bigger angle. For example, the pandemic happening right now. I know that the economy, let's put aside the direct human toll and death. For even if people who don't get sick, the economy is going to slow way down. Which means wages are going to fall, which means people are going to have trouble paying their bills. Huge numbers of them. That's a fact. It's also a fact that before the pandemic started, that was already the case for a huge amount of people. They couldn't get jobs that allowed them to pay their bills, or they lost their job that allowed them to pay their bills. and they slid down the ladder, and their circumstances became desperate, and they were evicted, and they got collection notices in the mail. Before you know it, their life's a mess, and they'll never know how they're going to get it better again. All that happened before the pandemic. Now it's just going to happen to more people. So the crisis that we're in, this word crisis, have we really entered a new crisis? In some ways we have. Is that crisis different from the crisis that we were experiencing before the pandemic? No, I don't think so. Not really. Two, when a life of achievement is considered best, they won't approve of your lifestyle. When good men and thorough are thoroughly trusted, shorts can be slid down with impunity. Amateurs and achievers are two poles of manhood. Businessmen and bums both have two pairs of testicles. Complex and simple get down to cases. Fair and foul are both over the line. Strikes and gutters are results of the role. Reactionaries and pacifists are both concerned about basic freedoms. Ups and downs are a dance in the cycle. So the stranger controls without authority, and he teaches without cuss words. He lets all things take her easy, watches the semifinals, but does not interfere. Drinks sarsaparilla without seeking something stronger, and takes comfort where he can. The original quote, once beauty is identified as precious, ugliness is seen everywhere. Once the good is held up as an ideal, the commonplace is considered bad. Difficult and easy, long and short, high and low, sound and silence before and after. Each of them are complementary parts of a bigger unity. But our conditioned minds don't perceive it that way. We drive each aspect as far apart as possible from its complement, and increasingly obsess over their division. Therefore, the sage acts without struggle or coercion, and teaches by example and illusion, rather than rote and rule. Things come and he welcomes them. Things go and he bids them adieu. He helps with no expectation of gain, works with no expectation of reward, performs with no anticipation of results, completes projects, but takes no credit. Since he takes nothing from the world takes nothing from him, and his impact upon the world long endures. So, what do I have to say about this one? Like the guy said at the top, you could read this stuff in a day, or you can read it in a lifetime. But this reminds me of the old... where does it come from? I feel like the Gnostics back in the day used to talk about this stuff. But the idea, I guess, that something is really defined by its opposite, and that those two things, when you combine them, create a unity, which is ultimately, if you go all the way up the chain of being, or even Platonic being, in terms of concepts that can be imagined in the mind, I guess you'll eventually get to a single entity, right, which encompasses all. But that's, I guess, neither here nor there for us here today, and for people generally, I'd say in our modern age, it's still true. We do define many concepts and ideas, either explicitly or implicitly in our minds, by what they aren't. What does freedom look like? We can't decide. We know what it doesn't look like. Slavery, right? So if you were literally not allowed to leave your place of business at the end of the day, and you were chained to a cot, you could very easily imagine that. But, are you free now? Some people would say yes. Other people would say not really. This was my freedom mean when my freedom is to participate in a marketplace and I don't have any money, which is the true for the vast swaths of the American public today. I think Democrats and Republicans, these two words, are often said against each other to ill effect in our politics, believe it or not. They are set up against each other as opposites. And they do oppose each other, literally speaking. But as you'll hear on my show and many other shows in the leftosphere, um, they are not really opposite in that, they don't believe, or they believe the exact opposite of the other in every case. And in fact, in many cases, the Democrats themselves are far too alike the Republicans for our views. And this has been a big problem and is going to continue to be a big problem going forward. Number 3, not achieving prevents besting competitors. Not trying to scam anyone prevents taking any rug in the house. Not flaunting beauty prevents $1,000 blowjobs. This is not NAM. This is bowling. There are rules. So the stranger inspires the dude by digging his style, listening to his story, telling him to take her easy, and boosting his morale before the finals. If people aren't privy to the new shit that has come to light, cowards among them will threaten castration. If no action is taken, there will be pee stains on the rug. Or the original in English, or close to it. Exalting our superiors invites competition. Treasuring things that are difficult to obtain encourages theft. Flaunting objects of desire gives rise to jealousy. So the sage rules by relaxing the people's hearts, satisfying their needs, lessening their wants, and strengthening their character. Once he has shown people how to live without craftiness and envy, cunning interlopers cannot take advantage of nor trick them. Living without objective allows us to live in harmony with nature. Just a little note, historically speaking, I believe, Dow. It's a good book, but like I said, things are defined by their opposite and what they're created in reaction to in a lot of ways. And in a lot of ways, when Lao Tzu talks about the sage, he's often talking about, or it seems anyway, that he's talking about specifically kings, emperors, people like this, lords, not just like wise old men and women, but literal rulers. Now, most of this advice, I feel like, is actually pretty good, just for everyday people who tend to find themselves in leadership positions more often than not in this or that case. And even if they don't, some of this is just good interpersonal sort of dynamics, at least to participate in with your neutral to positive, humanity. The shit stains that populate, the world writ large, not the world writ large, but the establishment who rule us, these are a different matter. And I don't ever try not to mix my advice on how to live in terms of how you treat other people, generally speaking, who are also nobodies like you, versus how you should treat people who aren't nobodies like you, who are actually very important and rich and influential and ruining everything. So fuck them. That being said, I like the second stanza the most. The stranger, of course, in the Big Lebowski is played by Sam Elliott, if you're wondering who they're talking about. And Sam Elliott sits at the bar, orders a sarsaparilla. Is interested in the dude, but not overly so. Anyway, so the stranger inspires the dude by digging his style, listening to his story, telling him to take her easy, boosting his morale before the finals. Digging his style. The stranger's a cowboy. The dude is a Southern California bum. They don't look anything alike. You would think those two people, those two styles, they clash. They'd be opposed to one another. It's not so. Just because it's not your style doesn't mean that you cannot dig the other style. Feel free to dig styles other than your own. It is okay to like things, everything else being equal. Listening to his story. Man, there is nothing that is both so free and so valuable to people as being listened to, feeling heard. Now, it's not enough, obviously, for everything. But for little peasants like us down here, listening to each other's stories, this is an act of kindness in and of itself. And it's not a small one, always. And just because we don't always have the resources to materially help each other in every way that we wish we could, we can always listen to the dude's story, telling him to take her easy. Taking it easy doesn't mean not giving a shit or that what you're concerned about doesn't matter. Taking her easy just means, at least for me, and again, I'm just one dudist, alright? And you don't agree with this shit? This is just my opinion, man. But for me, taking her easy really just means an acceptance that regardless of how freaked out you are by it or not, things will go a way in the end, and they will go a way and not another. In some small ways, you may be able to affect the course of that, and I think sometimes trying is worth it, other times it's not. That's for everyone else to figure out for themselves in the moment. I can't tell you the answer. But I can tell you step one is, I think, the path of wisdom to remember that taking her easy means accepting that things will go a way because they only ever go one way. And that you have to accept that. Then once they go that way, you look around and you go that way too. In a certain sense. You adapt. Doesn't mean you accept everything blindingly, because this is not about politics necessarily, or at least you're not about your political ideology. It's just about how you should see the world. Because the thing is about religion, there is no one way to live, think, and envision the cosmos of the universe that any religion details that's going to work across time and space for every single person across this planet. It just doesn't go that way. Religions are the product of time and place, and they're only as good in practice as the time and place in which they're designed to be effective. It doesn't make sense to be a dudist in a pre-capitalist society where there's not a specialization of labor and people don't live in apartments like the dude does in South Hollywood and have running water and shit. It doesn't work that way. But for us today, we do kind of live in a world that looks mostly like the dude's world. Which is why, silly as it is, and you shouldn't take any of this too seriously, that's why it's religion for me, baby. Let's do some more. Yes, be mean to people in power. That's true. None of this applies to Meghan McCain or Donald Trump or Joe Biden. 4. The dude's glass may be empty, but he knows it will soon be refilled. Necessary means are unnecessary. He takes comfort in that. Let me tell you something about the dude. Even though his career has slowed down a little, he would never dream of taking your bullshit money. Even if there are a lot of strands in his head, he will help you conceive. Even if he had a rough day, he'll be there, man. Even if he loses $1,000,000, can't be worried about that shit. Life goes on. If you dig his style, he will dig yours. He takes it easy for all us sinners out there. His mind is limber, and he fits right in there. What the fuck are you talking about? I lost my train of thought here. Or in English, Tao is an empty vessel, yet everything comes from it. Though utterly fathomless, it gives rise to everything we perceive. It smooths sharp edges. It unties the knots. It softens the glare and settles the dirt of daily life. Profoundly patient, it seems to have been around forever. No one knows where it came from. This is because it preceded the world of forms. Yeah, that's a great translation. It's very accessible. So this is why the dude De Ching is far more approachable than the Dao De Ching. Even though his career has slowed down a little, he would never dream of taking your bullshit money. The dude did dream of taking his bullshit money, or he was allowed to by Walter. Talked him into it. But then once it was gone, can't be worried about that shit. Life goes on. See, that's the important part for me. The moment the realization hits you that something has slipped through your fingers, metaphorically speaking, from that moment until the moment that you accept and decide not to be worried about that shit because life goes on, all that time in between is lost for you. At least it is for me. I feel like when that shit happens, my head's in a cloud. I ain't no good to nobody anyway. That's all I can think about. You missed your chance. You blew it. You're doomed. You're fucked. Life goes on. Can't be worried about that shit. Number 5. Nihilists are unsentimental. They believe in nothing. Stranger is also unsentimental. He drifts where the wind catches him. Nihilists are like a bellows, empty, yet full of hot air. The more they threaten, the more cowardly they seem. The stranger also rambles and loses his train of thought, but tells a pretty good story. There's a literal connection. It affects all of us, dude. There is no bottom. Or in Tao 5, nature is unsentimental. It treats the living no different than it treats debris. Sages are the same. They evaluate everyone impartially. Nature is like a bellows. It is empty, and yet everything springs from it. The more pressure put on it, the more it creates. Man is not like this. The more he produces, the more exhausted he becomes. To tap into the Tao, the sage instead turns inward. There he finds its calm and creative source at the very center of his being. I'll be honest with you, this chapter sucks. Nature is not kind, it treats all things impartially. The sage is not kind, it treats all people impartially. Nature is like a bellows, empty, yet supplying all needs. The more it moves, the more it yields. The sage draws upon Tao in the same way. It cannot be exhausted. I actually like that one better. Yeah, I don't know, man. Far out. What can I say about that? I don't have all the answers here. I'm just going to move on. After the cable is fixed, Bunny feeds the monkey. Strongly vaginal, she needs no commendation. Marvelous woman, very free-spirited. The dude still jerks off manually. Few bones or clams are found in his cash machine. Or 6, the fountain of life, which never ceases to flow, can be thought of as a mysterious sort of womb. Ooh, problematic. Wow. The entrance to this profound mother is the origin of the world. Her presence stretches in all directions across all time and space. She seems to give birth without exerting the slightest effort. What does mine say? Like a nympho stepmother, she has to feed the monkey. She is commended as strongly vaginal but makes no art. Only beaver pictures with ludicrous stories. The dude still jerks off manually. Few bones or clams are found in his cash machine. Yeah, I like my translation much better. Only beaver pictures with ludicrous stories. They changed this to marvelous woman, very free-spirited in this line. But I feel like maybe it should be read sarcastically almost, or ironically. Who fucking knows? But to me, that's the point. What she makes only to sustain her lifestyle. There is, and I get it, we all need to feed the monkey. Because all our monkeys need to eat. But the point is when you're only doing it to feed the monkey, when there is nothing else there, only beaver pictures with ludicrous stories. In other words, the porn is all that's left, and even the core of story that was there has been stripped away to its just most ludicrous and barest bones. This is not good. This is not dude. The dude still jerks off manually. The dude doesn't not jerk off because the dude has to feed the monkey. So he does not try to deny this fact in any way. This is a path of folly. The dude realizes that his monkey must be fed and he feeds it, but manually. And keeps few bones or clams in his cash machine. He does not hoard. This is dude. Seven, why is bowling eternal? Because it rolls in cycles. Similarly, because he has no ends, the dude never fails to achieve. The dude takes it easy, and so Brother Seamus's dig his work. He says, fuck it, and thus nothing is fucked. Because he is a pacifist, no harm is visited tenfold upon his head. Because he does not put himself over the line, he does not enter a world of pain. It is only because he gives a shit about the fucking toe that no one's going to cut his dick off. Or the original, why is nature eternal and enduring? Because it does not have any ends. Because it lacks any goals. Nature can never fail to succeed. Understanding this, the sage also refuses to contend or compete. By placing himself in the back, he soon finds himself out in front. Because he doesn't have any expectations, he doesn't suffer any disappointments. Thus, it is only because he lacks any self-interest that his interests are fulfilled. Let's see what my copy says. The bowling is everlasting because it does not have a point. In this way, the dude makes his point at the end and finds he made it at the beginning. Rolls casually down the lane and endures through strikes and gutters because he does not put himself over the line. He does not enter a world of pain. Let's talk about going over the line a little bit. Going over the line means entering a world of pain. Going over the line doesn't mean, that world of pain doesn't mean that it isn't necessarily bad or endless or not worth it. In other words, the wisdom here is not do not go over the line, because if you do, you will enter a world of pain. But to realize that going over the line means entering a world of pain. That world of pain may be true. It may be worth entering. It may be worth grappling. It may be worth trying to change. I think so, depending on the context. But even I can admit that it is the fact that you go over the line that has consequences. You recognize this dynamic, this is wisdom. You fail to recognize it, this is silly. To enter a world of pain is only foolish if you've done it accidentally or by mistake. If you've willingly walked into it and have considered the consequences of your actions, that can be brave. That's what I think. Let's do some more. 8. Ooh, I like. Pardon. It is best to be like the dude. The dude takes it easy and is calmer than you are. He hangs out in bowling alleys and other places where careers slow down a little. So, be like the dude, laying low upon his rug, driving a car with rust coloration, helping his lady friend conceive, taking any rug in the house, patronizing the In-N-Out burger on Camrose, digging your style too, and ending this thing cheap. In this way, life goes on, and worry does not. Or in English 8, it is best to be like water. Water benefits all things, yet it does not contend nor struggle to do so. Water naturally goes places shunned by most people. Therefore, water is very similar to Tao. Because it dwells even in low places, it is of benefit to all, even the unpopular and rejected. Be like water. Dwell low, close to the earth. Penetrate deeply and reflect serenely upon your environment. Benefit and nourish all the things around you. Communicate clearly and faithfully. When taking charge, be appropriate. When serving others, be able. Do not rush nor tarry. There is a unique time, rhythm, and speed for every action. The sage does not pit himself against nature, therefore he never finds his path obstructed. Or my translation, 8, digging. The man for his time and place takes it easy and is calmer than you are. He hangs out in bowling alleys and other places where careers slow down a little. So the dude in dwelling where it's already the 10th, and driving a car with rust coloration, and helping his lady friend conceive, and taking any rug in the house, and patronizing the In-N-Out burger on Camrose, and letting life go on, man, and digging your style too. He ends this thing cheap, and harm is not visited tenfold upon his head. Yeah, Oliver Benjamin, this translation sucks. I like this older one than I have. The man for his time and place, it's better to call him like that than the dude. Because that is why the dude is cool. Because he is the man for his time and place. Like I said before, you take the dude and you put him in the late Roman Republic or the Elizabethan era of England, or make him a Vietnamese peasant in 1955. Like, he doesn't fit in there anymore, man. So to the extent that the dude doesn't fit in a place, you don't put him there. That's true dudism. Maybe that's the final lesson. The final lesson is to learn when it is appropriate to be dude and when it is not. Because in terms of dealing with life as it comes at you, as a person without the ability to affect a great deal of change about those things, being like the dude is good. However, that's not always the case. Sometimes we have a choice, in which case the dude does not fit right in there. But for us today, be like the dude, laying low upon his rug, driving a car with rust coloration, or indwelling where it's already the 10th. In other words, living humbly and knowing that even though it's already the 10th and you haven't paid your rent, that does not make you less. Life goes on, and worry does not. Let's do a few more. Number 9. When a plan gets too complex, everything can go wrong. Do you see what happens? Draw a line in the sand, toes will slip over the line. Put $1 million in your car, perhaps they'll tow it. Roll your way into the semis, they're gonna fuck you up. Take any rug in the house, you'll get a crack on the jaw. Keep the fucking money, they're gonna cut off your Johnson. Instead, say fuck it. That's your answer for everything. It is the way of the dude. Or in the original, man is oriented towards excess, but greed puts a strain on systems, destroying them. An over-sharpened blade will be broken, an overflowing vault will be vanished, an overvalued ego will be brought down. Do what is necessary, take what you need, and then get out of the way. This is the efficient way in which nature operates. Or in my translation, unchecked aggression is the name of this one. When a plan gets too complex, everything can go wrong. See what happens when you fuck a stranger in the ass. Park in a handicapped spot, perhaps they'll tow it. Roll your way into the semis, they're gonna fuck you up. Take any rug in the house, you get a crack in the jaw. Look for the one who will benefit, and they're gonna cut your dick off. Say fuck it. That's your answer for everything. This is the way of the dude. Once again, park in a handicapped spot, perhaps they'll tow it. Roll your way into the semis, they're gonna fuck you up. The point of that is not to never roll your way into the semis. It is just to recognize that by choosing the way of rolling into the semis, you are also choosing the possibility that they're gonna fuck you up. You take any rug in the house, even though it is your right, you're gonna get a crack on the jaw. And if you try to go all the way up and keep all the fucking money, they're gonna cut off your Johnson. Either literally or metaphorically. Because even if, let's say, a really rich person, let's say nobody ever cuts off, let's just make up a name, shall we? Let's call him Beth Jesus, okay? So let's say there's a billionaire, I'm just making up a name out of nowhere, called Beth Jesus, okay? Beth Jesus has billions of dollars, right? And he's really worried that a lot of people like me and you maybe not like us, but in our similar class position and a lot madder at him and maybe closer to him, physically speaking, are gonna cut off his Johnson or fuck him up, okay? So let's say he builds, I don't know, a fucking military base around his house, basically. He hires a private army and, goes into a fortress, right? let's say he lives his whole life, this Beth Jesus, without ever getting his Johnson cut off. He will still be living in a world in which getting his Johnson cut off was all that mattered. It drove everything he did. It controlled every action he took. It made him build a fortress and live inside it and live in fear of his Johnson getting cut off. Literally. There's no way out. There's no escaping. You keep the fucking money, they're gonna cut off your Johnson. Also, Beth Jesus, it's true. I could use a new rug. So we're on number 10. We'll do a few more of these. Number 10, can you embrace both Maud and Bunny and see them as two sides of the same special lady? This will help you get down to cases and prevent you from no longer digging them. If you are perfectly calm, you can be like a little Lebowski on the way. If you adhere to a strict drug regimen, you will be able to keep your mind limber. If you give a shit about that poor woman, you will be rescued from being a fucking asshole. As temptations fall burning into your lap, can you just take it easy, man? As you are made privy to the new shit that comes to light, can you retain the humility of a fucking amateur? Both the dude and the stranger nurse their beverages without becoming addicted to them. They bowl but do not expect to win. And they ramble without becoming rambunctious. People call this being dude. It is an incarnation of dudeness. It comes to light when you keep your mind limber. Or if you prefer, quote, can you embrace both the abstract and the concrete? Can you see them as two sides of the same oneness? This will help you maintain integrity and avoid internal contradiction. Meditating upon and subtilizing your inner energy allows you to become as pure and receptive as a newborn. Examining your perceptions of the world allows you to cleanse them of all dust and distortion. Identifying with the people over whom you have influence prevents being distracted by your own self-interest. As temptations avail themselves to you, can you remain steadfast as a mother bird in the nest? Can you, as you grow wise and knowledgeable about many things, can you retain the modesty of an amateur? Excuse me. Both the Tao and the sage nurture the people without assuming any ownership of them. They act without expecting results and lead without controlling. Human beings call this virtue. It is the very embodiment of Tao, Tao manifesting itself via the human heart. Or mine, which is entitled Coitus. Embracing toes, you can blow that far. Limber, sighing gently, you can roll a strike. Loosening uptight thinking, you roll out naked. Nurturing your special lady, you can take her easy. Untying your robe, you become tied together. Abiding with the world, you increase the chances of conception. Mixing Kahlua and cream, but not soiling the rug, giving without demanding ransom, controlling without being a real reactionary. This is a natural, zesty enterprise. Oh, yes. I really like that one. Identifying with the people over whom you have interest prevents being distracted by your own self-interest. As temptations avail themselves to you, can you remain steadfast? This is the next part. I think about this a lot. as you are made privy to new shit that comes to light, can you retain the humility of a fucking amateur? Or as you grow wise and knowledgeable about many things, can you retain the modesty of an amateur? One of my favorite facts about the world is that con artists, their favorite targets are not dumbass morons who are usually poor but have some money at the time for a reason. They wanted a prize or something, got lucky, or some life event, inheritance, whatever. No. I mean, obviously that stuff happens, but the con man's favorite targets are doctors, lawyers, businessmen, highly trained and educated professionals. For a couple reasons. One, they tend to have more money than your average peasant podcaster. So that's one. But the other reason is because they have grown wise and knowledgeable about many things. The con artists, whether they realize it or not, they're playing a numbers game. The more you know, the less likely, not always, but the less likely it is that you will retain the modesty of an amateur. You will come to see yourself as not an amateur anymore. Because you know this, that, and the other thing that so many people do not. And your job relies upon that expertise every day that you go to. And the people around you are impressed by it. And it becomes a core part of your identity as a person. And so when the moment comes, when that person asks themselves, am I being scammed? Did I make a mistake? Did I bite this apple and am now getting scammed? They will resist over and over and over again the realization that they've been fucked in the ass by a stranger. And the reason they'll do that is because to admit that they themselves are capable of being fucked in the ass by a stranger is to deny their very identity. As you grow wise and knowledgeable about many things, can you retain the modesty of an amateur? This is very dude. $11. A glass is made of crystal, but it is the space at its center which lets it become the beverage. A bowling ball is made of resin, but it is the holes for your fingers which render it rollable. A bungalow is made of plaster and plywood, but it is the open door which lets you inside. Therefore, though it is stuff that people want, it is space that people need. Or, in the original, a wheel is fashioned from spokes, yet it is the emptiness at its hub which allows it to function. A bowl is molded from clay, yet it is hollow at its center which allows it to be used. A house is structured from timber and stone, yet it is the empty space within which affords it its value. Therefore, although presence provides property, empty space affords utility. Mine's quite a bit different. No bottom. 20 grand, man. Meet at the handoff. They believe in nothing. Dirty undies. The whites ensure the ringer will not look empty. There never was any fucking money. What in God's holy name are you blathering about? Nothing is fucked here. It is the receptacle which allows the remains to be transmitted, and the holes which allow the bowling ball to be held. What doesn't make sense makes it so darn interesting. The story is ludicrous, but it makes a pretty good story. Don't you think? What I have to say about that is quiet contemplation. Hey, if you don't get it, I can't walk you through all of this, alright? Fucking think for yourself. How about that? 12. Too much. Oh, this is one of my favorites. Might end with this. 12. Too much Kahlua blunts the vodka. Too much vodka dilutes the milk. Too much milk dulls the beverage. Too much beverage maddens the mind. Too much madness makes the whole world go fucking crazy. A good burger provides for the belly, not for the head. In and out. It pairs well with sarsaparilla. Or the original, too much light blinds the eye, too much sound deafens the ear, too much spice blunts the taste, too much excitement maddens the mind, too much desire compromises the character. This is why the sage puts his inner needs first, by moderating the external distractions of the senses. Or in mine, too much Kahlua blinds the vodka. Too much vodka deafens the milk. Too much milk dulls the beverage. Too much beverage baddens the mind. Too much madness makes the whole world go fucking crazy. A good burger provides for the belly, not for the head. In and out. Pairs well with oat soda. See, I like that last one. Sarsaparilla is not an alcoholic beverage. Oat soda is beer. So it's alcoholic, but it's not strong. The good burger provides for your belly. The beer provides for your head. They pair well together. Too much Kahlua blunts the vodka. It's true. You ever made a White Russian? I'm really good at it. 1.5 ounces of vodka. 3/4 of an ounce of Kahlua. Ice. Half and half. Small tumbler glass. Fill to the brim. Mix it. Drink it. Feel good. That's how you make it. Always put double the vodka as you do Kahlua in it. I believe that's the proportion that I taught myself over the years. So let's say you get all that. Too much vodka, or too much Kahlua blunts the vodka, that's not a problem. Too much vodka diluting the milk, that's not a problem. Too much milk dulling the beverage, that's not a problem. We have beverage. Too much beverage maddens the mind. Huh. So should we never madden our minds? Should we never be excused from losing control? Was it never the path of wisdom to do this? No. I don't think so. The next stanza, too much madness makes the whole world go fucking crazy. Implies to me that there is such a thing as a sufficient amount of madness, or at least an amount of madness that is not too much. In other words, their madness should be proportioned to the situation at hand, fit right in there. Because there may be times where it actually is beneficial to have a little more beverage than you would otherwise have, to make your mind maddened a little more than it otherwise would be. I also think the inverse is true. Could be the fact that there could be times where even less beverage is the appropriate amount. But it all depends on the circumstances in which you're in. Can you tell when it's bad enough that you should start getting drunk and that's all right? I don't know. Who can answer this with any sort of consistency? No one. Anyone who says they can, lying to you or trying to trick you. Not me. Not old dude here. Would never do that. 13 is divided into 2. Believe it or not. Usually. In mine, I have a 13A and a 13B. This will be our last one. For now. We're going to go through the whole... I'm going to go through the whole thing, though. Ooh, you say you never measure drinks. But I know that you're lying. Because even if you don't actually use the little cup, like, you're eyeballing it. Right? I'm sure you are. I'm sure you look to see how much you're pouring. So, in this is like you are still measuring it. You have just decided that this method of measurement is sufficient for your time and place because you're not worried about that shit, man. Life goes on. You just want the drink. And it seems to work out pretty good most of the time. You know what? I dig your style. The dude said, can't be worried about that shit, life goes on. The stranger likes his style because he's the man for his time and place. The stranger said, sometimes you eat the bear, and sometimes the bear, well, he eats you. The dude likes his style because it's got a whole cowboy thing going on. He who regards himself as part of the whole darn human comedy is able to abide the world. He who asks the bartender for another Caucasian is still racially pretty cool. If you take the good with the bad, life does not stop and start inconveniently. This affects all of us, the royal we. Down through the generations, I'm rambling again. The Tao Te Ching 13, the sages say both praise and blame induce anxiety, for honors are fleeting and fickle. We indulge our anxieties because they safeguard the self. It seems that consternation may be a condition of consciousness. However, for those who regard themselves as a part of a much greater whole, praise and blame no longer elicit unease. Undivided from environment, they care about the world as much as they care about themselves. This is why it is only those who see themselves as ordinary who may be fit to influence the world, and only those immune to honor who may actually deserve it. My translation is different. 13a, the bar. The stranger said, sometimes you eat the bar, and sometimes the bar, well, he eats you. The dude likes his style because he's got that whole cowboy thing going on. That's the way the whole darn human comedy keeps perpetuating itself. Westward the wagons, tumbling tumbleweeds, some kind of eastern thing. I'm rambling again. Therefore, he who regards the whole world as the bar is able to abide with the world, and he who asks Gary the bartender for another Caucasian is still racially pretty cool. 13b, the dumps. The dude said, you can't be worried about that shit. Life goes on. Would you just take it easy, man? You're not wrong. You're just an asshole. My thinking about this case has become very uptight. I could be sitting here with just pee stains on my rug. Of course, you have to take the good with the bad. Life does not stop and start at your convenience. This affects all of us, the royal we. That is why it is only those who see themselves as ordinary who may be fit to influence the world, and only those immune to honor who may actually deserve it. Man, I love that shit. There is not always a ton that I could say about my spiritual beliefs or outlook on life that has much to do with my politics. Always. For whatever reason, these have always been mostly compartmentalized in my mind, although less and less so as I've aged. But the idea that for those who regard themselves as a part of a greater whole, they care about the world as much as they care about themselves. Trying to do this. This has never changed about me. And in terms of religion, I think it's pretty good. Tended to slam on in there. Because we are all part of a much greater whole, now more than ever. And that we are all interconnected and rely upon each other collectively for many of our wants and needs. And also, it's very important in times like this that we respond collectively as a society to our challenges and not individually. But those who seek to rule us, with the exception of Bernie Sanders, who really does seem to strive, at least, to regard himself as part of a much greater whole and care about the world as much as they care about themselves, to be the man who is immune to honor and thus actually deserves it, to see himself as still ordinary, who's and therefore fit to influence the world, and also on behalf of and in congregation with other ordinary people who are struggling. I don't really think it's possible to run for president or really any political office and to be perfectly selfless in this way. There will always be a tinge. You'll never be able to pull this off all the time, I think. But it doesn't give you an excuse not to try to regard yourself that way. Not to put yourself in that frame of mind. That you're the one, that you are singular. Or at least part of a small and elite class of those who might influence the world. No. The more you do this, the less dude you are. Bernie Sanders, believe it or not, is the most dude candidate running that I've ever seen in my entire life. Only those immune to honor actually deserve it. Alright, that's going to end it for us today here. I want to thank you for joining me. We got through 13 verses. There are 81 total. And so I think Sunday nights from now on, we will crack open both this free edition of, I believe this is a later translation that they wrote up of the Dude Day Ching, which I hate more, or I don't like as much as my translation. My translation, which I think is better. And we'll also read the Tao Te Ching proper in English, or at least this translation of it. I want to apologize for not learning Chinese yet during the quarantine. I was going to try to figure out how to read ancient Chinese, but then I remembered that I don't know how to do that. I don't even know how to start. So, and it seems like it might take a little longer than just a couple months. In conclusion, though, I'm going to say thank you for joining me tonight. Where, depending on where you are in the country, things are either feeling kind of upside down for you, like they are for me, or feeling totally fucking batshit insane, particularly if you're in a more densely populated, urban area. But I don't think it's the case that anyone has been totally unaffected in any way, and that there are a lot of people out there who are feeling incredibly anxious about the future, both writ large and for themselves. I want you to know that I'm with you. I am also one of those. I am afraid for my future, both materially and like in the immediate sense of the first of the month is coming and bills are coming due, and I know this is true for a lot of people, and they're all feeling extremely stressed, anxious about that. In addition to my comfort as a Dudas priest to you, I want to tell you that just from a socialist point of view, this is a very good time for me to remind everyone and you to remind yourself and others that even before this pandemic, your struggles are not all your fault. You've been put into a place where struggling is the only option. And you've been trained and drilled in media and education your whole life to focus on your own personal responsibilities in that situation. And to focus on what you yourself can do to work harder and make it out of that. Yourself and only yourself. And what's left unsaid but doesn't need saying is that if you have failed to do this, then it's because you couldn't do it, because some people do it. So the fact that you haven't is a strike against you. And in addition to being materially lacking in the coming months, you'll also feel a sort of spiritual lacking. That your sense as a person of worth has been diminished. That it is your fault you did not save for this occasion, could not save for this occasion. It is your fault that your job is not good enough to be offering you the resources necessary to work from home and get hours. There's going to be a lot of people thinking that kind of thing, and I just can't emphasize enough how much fucking bullshit that is. If I could, I'd buy all that everyone needed. Give it out for free. I would. I wish I was a man of immense wealth so that I could just give money away. I would not do any philanthropy, only charity. Just rain cash from the sky on people so that they can get what they need. That would be great. I would do that. I can't do that. But what I can do is on that other side, that emotional side, that side that perhaps is screaming at you in your brain through the media and your own inner voice, to feel bad about this. Don't feel bad about this. Don't feel bad about this. There's a lot of people out there in the same spot as you. It is not the case that just recently everyone, millions, tens of millions of people, we all just got super dumb. Or at least dumber than we used to be, lazier than we used to be, less deserving than we used to be. It all happened real quick over the span of half a generation or so, right? And now we're all getting our fingers shook at us about the spot that we're in. Don't buy it. Abide the world. Do not abide that. All right, folks. See you